The eerie mist clung to the island like a shroud, its tendrils seeping into the cracks of their new home. For the Walker family, it was more than just an inconvenience. It was a harbinger of the darkness that awaited them in the depths of the Victorian mansion they impulsively purchased. As the fog thickened, so did the sense of foreboding. Little did they know that they weren't alone in the suffocating gloom. There was something sinister lurking within the mist, something that had been patiently waiting for its chance to strike. The Walker family was made up of 2 loving parents and their 3 young children. Ethan, Emily, and little baby Noah. They were a close-knit unit, bound together by their love for each other and their shared thirst for adventure, when the opportunity arose for them to buy an island off the coast of Maine. They jumped at it, eager to start their new life away from the hustle and bustle of the city. The island, though, came with a hefty price tag and a heavy history. Locals spoke of strange occurrences on the island, whispering tales of tragedy and despair that unfolded there decades ago. But the Walkers, armed with optimism and dreams of a simpler life, chose to ignore these chilling stories and moved right in. Their new home was a grand Victorian mansion that had once belonged to a wealthy family. Now, though, it was in desperate need of repair, its paint peeling and its gardens overgrown. But to the Walkers, it was perfect. They saw past the cracks in the walls and the creaking floorboards, envisioning a future filled with laughter and joy within its 4 walls. As soon as they stepped foot into the house, though, they felt a chill that had nothing to do with the New England weather. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the silence was deafening. It was as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for them to make a move. Days turned into weeks, and the family slowly began to settle in. They explored the vast rooms and discovered hidden nooks filled with relics from the past, each object telling a silent story of the lives that had played out there before. But as they unpacked their boxes and hung pictures on the walls, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. It started subtly enough, a fleeting glimpse of a shadow out of the corner of an eye or the sound of footsteps when they were alone. At first, they dismissed these occurrences as tricks of the light and the aging house's many groans and moans. But as time went on, the incidents grew more frequent and more intense. One evening, while the family was gathered around the dinner table sharing stories about their day, a vase on the mantelpiece suddenly fell to the ground and shattered. Startled, the Walkers looked towards the source of the noise, only to see the vase lying in pieces at their feet. There had been no sound of movement, no telltale crash as the vase left the shelf. It had simply appeared on the floor as if by magic. Another time, little Emily was playing in the attic when she came across a dusty old trunk. As she lifted the lid, a musty smell filled the air and a swarm of moths fluttered away from the decaying fabric. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house, startling Emily so much that she dropped the trunk lid, which slammed shut with a resounding boom. No one had been up in the attic with her, yet the scream seemed to come from the very walls themselves. As these events continued to escalate, the Walkers became increasingly disturbed. They began to suspect that they were not alone in the house. The question was, what otherworldly presence was haunting their new home, and what did it want from them? Fear turned to despair as the Walkers found themselves trapped in a never-ending cycle of terror. Every room they turned to offered a new nightmare. Every shadow seemed to hold a menacing presence. The once beautiful house had become a prison, isolating them from the outside world and from each other. Then, one night, the fog rolled in. It wasn't just any fog. It was thick, heavy, and oppressive, blanketing the island in an eerie silence that muffled even their screams. Trapped inside their dark prison, the Walkers huddled together, desperately seeking comfort in each other's presence. They were prisoners in their own home, cut off from the outside world by the dense fog. As the days passed, the fog showed no signs of lifting. It seeped into their bones, chilling them to the core. The Walkers became gaunt and haggard, their eyes hollow with fear and exhaustion. Their strength ebbed away, replaced by a growing sense of dread. They were losing hope. But even in the darkest depths of their despair, there was a glimmer of defiance. They refused to let the fog consume them, refusing to give up in the face of the unseen terror that surrounded them. And then, as suddenly as it had arrived, the fog began to lift. The walkers, weak and traumatized, stumbled out of their house into the pale sunlight. The world seemed alien to them, the sounds and smells distorted and strange. They were free from the fog, but the experience had changed them. They were no longer the same people who had moved into the mansion. They were broken, haunted by the memories of their ordeal. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the lawn, the walkers knew they couldn't stay on the island. The fog might be gone, but the darkness that had enveloped their souls remained. With heavy hearts, they left the island behind, carrying with them the scars of their terrifying ordeal. On their journey away from the island, the walkers encountered curious onlookers who whispered questions that tore at their already frayed nerves. The strangers wanted to know what had happened to them, why they were leaving the island after such a short time. But the walkers could only shake their heads, unable to articulate the unspeakable horrors they had endured. Back in the relative safety of their old life, the walkers tried to piece their lives back together. But the darkness that had enveloped them on the island followed them like a shadow, seeping into their everyday lives and twisting the mundane into the monstrous. Even the most ordinary of sights and sounds became triggers, sending them reeling back to the suffocating darkness of their island prison. Years passed, and the walkers never fully recovered from their harrowing experience. They became recluses, shunning social gatherings and keeping their windows perpetually drawn. They lived in a state of constant unease, always on the lookout for the next terrifying twist of fate. And so, the haunting fog claimed another victim, not just by taking away their peace of mind, but also by severing their ties to humanity. The walkers were forever changed, forever more prisoners of the nightmarish ordeal they faced on that forsaken island. What was supposed to be their dream home had become their worst nightmare, a place where their fears materialized and their sanity was put to the ultimate test. They had thought that buying an island would mean starting a new chapter filled with joy and happiness, but instead it had become the first page in their personal hell. Now, when the fog rolls in over the island, people whisper of the walkers and the tragic fate that befell them. They speak of how the fog itself seems to carry their screams, their desperate pleas for help that echo through the swirling mists. Some say that on foggy nights you can still hear the sound of their voices calling out to you from the depths of the darkness, trying to warn you of the fate that awaits. And so the tale of the walkers serves as a cautionary reminder for anyone who dares to venture too close to the island. For who knows what secrets lie hidden beneath the fog, what horrors wait to be unearthed, what whispers of despair dance on the edge of your hearing.